Good morning, friends, and welcome to New Garden Friends meeting. Friends, our reading for this morning is from Hebrews, chapter 12, verse 1. I'm reading from the New Revised Standard Version. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and the sin that clings so closely, and let us run with perseverance the race that is set before us. Death is a regular part of my life, but that's not nearly as morbid as it sounds. As a pastoral minister, I am often with people as they are in the last days of their lives. And I also regularly interact and provide support for those who are grieving the loss of a loved one. Planning and leading memorial services are also a regular part of my work life. And perhaps because of all of this, the reality that we will all die someday is very much part of my life. But that isn't typically true for most people. On October 7th, the Washington Post published an article that was entitled, "COVID-19 Makes Us Think About Our Mortality. Our brains aren't designed for that." In the article, the journalist Emma Paty explores the unsettling feeling that many people in the United States are experiencing, that unsettling feeling of dread that comes when we are forced to regularly acknowledge our own mortality and how fragile life can be. The pandemic has brought death and sickness to the forefront of our mind as a country. And because of this, life feels particularly fragile right now. For me, it isn't just the pandemic that has brought death closer to my mind and perhaps closer to the mind of all of you. New Garden Friends Meeting is an aging community, and in the 5+ years that I have been here, it feels as if every year I do a few more memorial services. Many of us have experienced the death of a loved one in the last several years. For us as a community, death has become even more a part of our community life as we age. In some ways, it feels as if we are all grieving, and perhaps that has always been true. We are all grieving, certainly right now, the losses that have been brought on by the pandemic. But we are also all grieving the loss of a loved one, whether that grief is fresh and new, or whether it is an old grief that we have carried for many years. All of this is why I decided that this was the year to learn more about All Saints' Day. I cannot recall ever acknowledging or celebrating All Saints' Day before, even though my extended family is Catholic and my father still considers himself a Catholic. Different Christian traditions celebrate All Saints' Day at different times during the liturgical calendar. But most mainline denominations here in the US celebrate it on the first Sunday in November. Obviously, we did not do that, but I decided to learn more about the practice of this holiday and how it might speak to us Quakers right now in the middle of this pandemic. What I learned was that All Saints' Day is a celebration and honoring of the saints of the church, but also an honoring of those in our life who have passed away, but who are still with us in spirit. That great cloud of witnesses. The passage that I shared with all of you from Hebrews about this great cloud of witnesses, it suggests that these witnesses are our ancestors or our loved ones, those who helped shape our community of faith, those people who continue to influence and guide and aid us long after they are no longer with us in body. This idea of a cloud of witnesses resonates deeply with me and with my Quaker understanding of life and death. See, we Quakers talk about how each person has a light within them. It is that goodness, that connection to the divine, the living presence. It is the light of love that is carried within each of us. And as a Quaker, I have always affirmed that even once a person passes away, that light of love continues shining on, that it continues shining on in our lives in both visceral and also subtle or spiritual ways. This cloud of witnesses can help guide and shape our lives. I think of our Quaker forebears who so courageously worked for justice in our world and who continue to inspire us today to put our testimonies into practice. I also think of my grandmothers who in different ways both led lives that were courageous, both of whom taught me about kindness and compassion for people who are not like me. I think of my grandfather, who was a dock worker in Brooklyn, who eventually died because of environmental exposure because of his job. His legacy continues to inspire me to work for a living wage for everyone and to also advocate for safe and equitable work environments. I think of the people I have known since becoming a pastor, people who have died since I started in ministry, and how each of those people taught me something about how to live a life of value. One of the great honors of my ministry is that in preparing a memorial service for someone, I get to learn about how that person changed the lives of others, how they lived a life of value and worth and goodness in big and small ways. Each of those lives created a ripple effect of goodness in their world, in their community. I also think of the brave women who walked before me, who advocated endlessly for the right of women to be in religious leadership. It is because of the work of those women that I am speaking to all of you today. Who is in your cloud of witnesses? What lives have changed your life? What loved ones are no longer with you in body, but continue to influence your life in countless ways? How do you honor their light and their legacy and how that light continues to shine on in our world? In the article from the Washington Post, the one about existential dread, it also talks about how death does not need to be something that we are frightened of. Instead, the article suggests that we can make peace with the truth of our mortality. And in addition, I would add, we can also remember that we are not truly separated from those who we love who are no longer with us in body. We can continue to draw strength from them, remembering the truth that we hear again and again in the Gospels, the truth that love never ends, the truth that love always wins, that death cannot separate us from love, that love will continue on, giving us strength and courage and resilience when we need it the most. I am reminded of an elder who I met a number of years ago. She confided in me that she still regularly had conversations with her spouse, although he had passed away a number of years before. She said, "I know it sounds odd, but he still gives me the best advice." I've thought about that often, and the truth within that, the truth that our cloud of witnesses stands all around us, giving us strength, giving us advice, caring and loving us, and helping carry us through whatever life will bring. And someday I like to think of my cloud of witnesses surrounding me when it is time for my transition from this life into the great mystery of whatever comes next. I like to think of them surrounding me and easing my transition and welcoming me home. Today, as we honor the saints of our world and the saints of our lives, as we hold tenderly the truth that life is fragile and the truth of our own mortality, I want to encourage you, friends, to be not afraid. May the strength of those who have loved you so dearly carry you forward into the days and weeks to come. May you be reminded in big ways and in small ways of their love and care. May their presence still surround you and uplift you, bring you advice and wisdom when you need it. May that cloud of witnesses carry you forward into the rhythm of your life, a rhythm that will someday come to an end. Be not afraid, friends, for there is a mighty cloud of witnesses that will help us run our race. Be not afraid, friends, for although it is true that there is a season for everything, including you, it is also true that love never ends.